Okay, so this is mainly to Alex and Keith. Um, it is basically a crash course on jungling, like the most common paths, and yeah, just basic pathing, basic jungling basically. So Warwick is really a healthy jungler right now. Alex, I would recommend you play him. Keith, you can play or him too, but I know you don't like to play. You like to play your own thing, so whatever. But Warwick has really good sustain, so you don't need. Just take the starting items recommended. You don't need pots or anything like that. When you are starting, you always start with the buff that bot can leash you, because it's quicker that way. It's healthier because you don't take as many hits. It's just overall better. And then after you take your first buff, you go to wolves. Always take wolves second. Because they are fairly easy to take, and they don't hurt too badly compared to Gromp. Gromp hurts a lot, and birds hurt a lot too. So after you take wolves, take your second buff, which is blue buff in this case. Once you take blue buff, there's a couple things you can do. After you take your second buff, that's when you can start looking at the map, how to play it. So, first thing you gotta consider is lane matchups. So look top and look mid, since you're in the vicinity of both. You're right in the middle. Top, see how, well, okay, we'll take this for instance. The minions are pushed in like this. So there's absolutely no way you're going to get a good gank off, because your laner is all the way up like this, and you're not going to tower dive level 3. That's a recipe for disaster. Now, if they are pushed in this far, that's also a bad thing, because they're probably pushed in this far without any wards in Tribush or River, because I've seen it a million times. I'm guilty of it myself. That means the enemy jungler is going to be pathing the exact same way. So they're going to start at their blue, then they're going to go to their wolves and then red, and then they're going to look for a gank, and they're going to be seeing, oh, this guy's pushed up way too far, so let's see if we can get a gank off. So you can be here for the counter gank. I mean, like, there's an 80% chance if your laner is pushed up past this little wall right here that they're going to get ganked. So a couple ways you can do counter to gank. One, if you are faster clear than them, you can throw a ward in the try, because most of the time they will take their red buff and then walk straight through this try and try to get a gank off this way. And you can just put a ward there and leave, and just watch that and just ping immediately as soon as you see the enemy jungler, so your laner can back off and prevent a first blood or a death or whatever. So that's really good. Helping your laner is getting vision in that tri-bush. If the wave is like this when you're finished with your blue buff, you can gank the enemy laner pretty easily, because they're pushed all the way up here. Now, you will, most efficient way to gank them is using the blast cone here, and then just running through this bush and ganking them here. But yes, going back to lane matchups, those are pretty important. You gotta think who has, if there's a level advantage going on, who has it, who has CC, whether it be hard CC like stun or slows or anything like that. If your laner has hard CC, that's good. That means it's a higher chance you can get a kill, especially if they're pushed in like this. But if they have hard CC, it means they can just self-peel and... Okay, sorry, my game bug splatted. Anyway, we're back. I was talking about hard CC on enemy side. They can self-peel, and it's less likely you can get a successful gank off. Now, another thing is successful gank does not always mean kill. you can. It's basically a successful gank is getting your laner an advantage on the enemy laner. So that means blowing their sums if they have. Usually it's flash teleport. So blow their flash. They'll probably be pretty weak, so they'll have to back and then immediately teleport. So that global pressure is down because their teleport is down, and the lane pressure is also down on your laner because their flash is down. So really, the enemy laner has to play pretty conservatively if they're smart. Otherwise, they'll just give over kills to your laner. So that's basically what you want to look for in ganking for a lane. Top lane's pretty easy to gank because a lot of people don't ward. A lot of people don't ward at all, especially like bronze, silver, gold. They're really bad at warding, and they're just looking for trades and kills in lane because they just don't have the game sense to watch out for ganks. So also top laners tilt very easily. So if you gank somebody and they say something in alt chat and it's pretty salty, you just keep camping them. If you camp them enough, they will tilt off the face of the earth. There's a chance they'll AFK, which is basically a 4v5 for your team, so it's almost a free win. Or they'll just tilt and make really bad decisions, make really bad plays, and that's also really good for you guys. So tilting is another huge thing that you can do as a jungler, which is very, very helpful for your team and can win you a lot of games if you play it correctly. Now, mid lane's a little bit harder to gank. I personally am not a fan of ganking mid lane unless you're playing like Sejuani or Xin Zhao or someone like that. Alex's dad. That's a shout out there. Because mid lane, there's so many possible escape routes. I mean, you've got, say they're right here. They can run either the river, they can run back to their turret, they can run back over here, especially if you don't know where their jungler is. I mean, their jungler could be over taking birds or something, and they could just react right then. So, mid lane's a little bit different breed of animal, and I'm not too experienced in ganking that. Honestly, wait until your laner blows their flash, and then just gank that, because that's pretty easy. Or if you're playing someone like Warwick, just wait till you get level 6, and it's a lot safer to gank mid lane once you get 6, because you have that the suppression for 1.5 seconds. So now, so you get to your third buff, or your second buff, which would be blue buff in this case, and top lane is in a good state, so it's like right in the middle. Mid lane is ungankable because, again, it's right in the middle, and maybe the enemy laner has mobility. So what I would do is either you can get vision for both mid and top by taking Scuttle Crab, and Scuttle Crab is very, very easy to take if you have some sort of CC, because it takes more damage. I think it takes like double damage if it's CC'd or something like that, and CC effects last twice as long or something like that. It takes more damage when it's CC'd. But Scuttle Crab's always very nice, so try to lock down the Scuttle Crabs, because it's basically makes the jungler unable to walk through river here, because they will be spotted. There's no way they can sneak around, because as you can see, the Fog of War ends right here, or starts right here rather, and is right here too, so they can't sneak around on the sides. But so yeah, take Scuttle Crab and then just keep farming. So Gromp, you can go Gromp and then walk on over to Birds, and then Krugs, and then you can back and buy your Smite item or whatever it is, whatever you want. Once you're back, you need to play the dragon game, basically. So after your first back, what I like to do is come back bot, try to secure the Scuttle Crab here, and then try to secure dragon. Now Warwick is really easy to take dragons with because of his lifesteal and his attack speed scaling on the lower health that the enemy has. And if bot lane is pushed in like this under turret and they're just poking them under turret, they can one of them can peel off and help you take dragon. So yeah, as a jungler, continually pay attention to dragon. Try to keep wards on it. Try to keep your support. Ask them to keep at least one ward on it at all times, because dragons are very, very important. So yeah, that's basically first clear, first 4 or 5 levels or whatever. Just continually look for ganks. Just kind of watch the map when you're farming. So I mean, obviously, when you're attacking red buff, you don't need to be completely focused on attacking red buff. You can be looking at the mini map while you're just attacking it. You can be like pressing F1, F2, F3, F4. I don't know if you guys knew that, but those are hotkeys to the little portraits that show up here as your teammates. You can F1, F2, F3, F4. So F1 centers it on your own champion. F2 would center it on whoever the first portrait is here, and so on and so forth. So you can just kind of spam those buttons and see what's going on in those lanes. So you always need to be thinking where the enemy jungler is. So the first 3 levels, it's going to be pretty easy to track them, because they'll be doing basically the exact same clear as you. They'll be starting with their bot lane. They'll be clearing their first buff, and then wolves or birds, whatever they want to do, and then their second buff, and then they will too be looking for a gank. So when you're in your on this side, when you're at your blue buff, they will most likely be at that red buff. And the easiest way you can tell where they started is which laner gets to lane late. So if top lane gets to lane late, they've leashed for them, basically. Or if bot lane gets to lane late, they've leashed for them also. Or down here. So, but almost nobody leashes. Top lane rarely leashes for junglers anymore, so it's always usually bot lane that leashes for junglers. So try to keep track of them. Like I said, these first 3 levels, very easy to keep track of them, because like in the first minute of the video, how I said ward this tri-bush after you take your blue buff. That's very, very helpful. And if you're stronger than them, level 3, if you have a healthier clear, if you're stronger than them, you can wait in this tri-bush and just try to cheese the crap out of them. I've done it multiple times as Kha'Zix. I guess you can do it as Xin Zhao too. He has a very strong early game. So junglers with really strong early games, you can cheese other junglers with, and you can either blow flashes, you can kill them and all that. Yeah, that's another really cheesy strategy, is just to wait in this tri-bush after you take your second buff. That's basically it. Just continually clear your jungle. A tip is to always, once your buffs are up, take them first. So if you have birds and a buff up, always take your buff first and then go to the smaller camps, because the quicker you can kill these buffs, the more buffs you get, because they will automatically be on respawn timers. So if that makes sense, because if I wait to kill red buff, it's still going to be the 1 red buff instead of potentially 2 in the same time, if I killed it instantly, or if I killed it as soon as it came up. Yeah, so just continually gank lanes as you see fit, using the matchup thing I was talking about earlier, where who has level advantage, who has power spike advantage, be it items or how far ahead they are, basically. And yes, always keep in mind of dragon. And I mean, Rift Herald's important if you think about it. Rift Herald is not as important as dragons, in my opinion, but that's probably wrong. Another way to keep track of enemy junglers. Really nice pink ward spots, or rather control wards, are this bush right here. I like this bush right here too. This bush, literally nobody ever goes in this bush. So if you have a pink ward right on here, it gives you vision of, let me see. Yeah, so it gives you vision of them pathing to Krugs, them pathing to red buff, and them pathing to the top lane right here. So you have this entire quadrant lit up, basically. Another one for regular wards is this bush, because this covers birds, which is really important, because usually people will take birds and then go mid lane. So if your mid laner sees them at birds, they can either try to take the birds or back off, because they know they're going to be in the vicinity of mid lane. And it also tell them if they're around red buff. And with the new buff timer things on the mini map, even if see, look right here, that has the hourglass for my red buff, means it's up in less than 20 seconds. Yellow hourglass means 20 seconds or less. White hourglass means a minute or less, or 40 seconds or less. I can't remember. But keep that in mind too. You can always look on the minimap and see those hourglasses, even if you haven't seen the buff been taken. And that's another super helpful thing too, is because once you see those buffs coming up, you can try to get wards in there, and then you can. That's another really easy way to track the jungler. So yeah, jungle basically is vision game and just getting your laners even slight advantages, be it through vision, summoner spells, or kills. And that is basically a crash course to jungling.